Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In this video I want to focus on why Final Fantasy XIV has a good community and why is it so different from some other games that I've played. And I've noticed that some other players that come from other games in streams or in YouTube videos also say the same thing. They are a lot more patient and you can find a lot more kindness and a lot less elitism and stuff of that sort. I've been thinking about it for a while as why that is, and today I want to kind of share that insight with you guys. In essence, I think the reason behind the difference in community is behind the leader of the game, the director of the game, Yoshi P. And the reason for that is I think a lot of his intrinsic values that he has is actually woven into the game without him knowing it, or it's a very subtle thing. And I think his value system is what's causing the community to also be different as well. I got a lot of that insight from two things. One, I listened to the interview that he did with Asmongold and Rich, and I saw some interesting attributes in Yoshi P and the way he talked. And you can get a lot of these cues when you listen to someone talk in an interview or the way they behave. One of the things that I liked about him was his respect and appreciation for the community and for specifically for Asmon and Rich. The fact that they come from another game and like someone like Asmon is very critical, and the fact that Yoshi embraces them and appreciates them, the value that they are bringing to the game and to the community, and respects them, I think is very important. It requires humility to be able to do something like that, and I think it's a very good attribute that Yoshi P has. Yeah, another good characteristic of Yoshi P which I noticed was his transparency and honesty. I think the fact that he was ready to do the interview with Asmon and Rich without needing to know the questions from before is a very important piece of information we can get of what kind of a person he is. He's not afraid of any questions to come in and ruin the game or anything like that. He has nothing to hide. These just shows that he's open to listening to any critical feedback or any difficult questions, and he's ready to answer it. And I think that's very important. Honesty and transparency is a critical, and not only is a good attribute to have personally, it also encourages others to be the same. And that can only lead to good things. The other attribute I noticed about Yoshi P is his compassion for the game, and his empathy towards the players. I think compassion, when you mix it with honesty and transparency, it becomes very powerful. You can see it in the apology video he makes for delaying the Endwalker expansion. He truly cares, right? It's whenever you do something for money or for KPIs, if any of you are into art or in the creative space, whenever you do something for like money, it kind of I don't know how to say it, but it kind of takes the soul out of it. And I think whenever you have someone who works on something, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a game, but works on something, whether that's like a piece of music, a piece of art, a game, whenever they have compassion for it, whenever they do it because they love doing that thing, it doesn't even matter to them at that point how much money they're going to make from it or not. They truly care about their craft and what they're making, and usually the best pieces of work come out like that. So I think that kind of shows the kind of soul that he puts into creating the game. And that's only one part of it. The second part is that that kind of attribute, what it leads to is that other people in the company, other people working for you, would also see that attribute in you, and they wouldn't be afraid to come out and talk. So the fact that his engineering team, the people who are testing the servers, or testing the actual end product that they want to launch, the fact that they weren't afraid to come forward and tell Yoshi that we didn't have enough time, we're not ready. The fact that they can do that is because they see that Yoshi P cares about that. They see that he cares more about the product being good and polished rather than launching on the date that he said and making the shareholders happy, etc., etc. Even though I think doing the right thing and delaying it ultimately will also be good for the shareholders, and it will also be good for profit, etc. But I don't really think that's the real reason why he did it. I think the real reason why he did such a thing was who he is. And these values that I'm just mentioning, and these are just values that I've noticed when he's doing interviews or when he's giving a speech. These values get translated into the game. They get woven into the game, and it's a very subtle thing. But I think it's really important, and we need to pay attention to it as gamers or as the community. So we support those value systems, which ultimately get translated into good games with good communities. And I think in games where there are the leadership is toxic, or they have attributes which are not so good, greed, focusing on just KPIs, just making more money, it gets woven into the game as well, and ultimately it gets woven into the community, because as the community plays and as the community supports the game, it means even though it's subtle, it's really meaning that it's okay that you guys have that value, or it's okay that those values are in the game. We're fine with it. We want to play the game, so it's fine. So I think it's important to first notice these things, and then secondly to support the good and not support the bad. And I think it's ultimately good for games that the people who are leading the efforts have good values, and we should know that these values also end up making the game better and the community better as well. One other aspect of Yoshi P's communication in the interview with Asman is that he was, as proof of his compassion about the game, and it's not so much about the money and keeping the players, was that when they mentioned to him about the the balancing of content for casuals and then versus hardcore players, or how can they keep him in the game after they've done the raid and stuff like that, he basically mentioned that once they complete the ultimate raids, they can just log off and leave and play another game, as simple as that, and they're welcome to come back again whenever there's a new raid out or whenever there's content that they would enjoy doing. And that was so refreshing to hear, and it just shows that he cares about his craft more than the KPIs. And I think whenever you have someone like that at the helm of your game, or at any company actually, it's going to lead to steady, slow growth and a happy player base. And it will lead to people who can log into a game, play it, enjoy it, and then feel good about themselves when they log out. Anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. I think the takeaway here for anyone who watches is that, number one, I think the values that we have, the morals, the ethics, it gets translated into the work that we do, and it makes a huge impact. And you can see how one person for example, in Final Fantasy 14, comes and becomes the director like Yoshi P and makes such an impact on the game, on the company itself, on the player base, and it just comes to show that one person can make a lot of change, and we can actually do that in our own lives as well. And I think the second point is to support the good values, support the people, the companies who have these good values, and take away our support from companies and people who don't. Because at the end of the day, the companies don't have that much power. It's really the player base, because if you don't support them, then they don't really have anything. So I think it's important to notice that as well. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.